AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life.
Greg Gutfeld stormed onto the political stage armed with a flamethrower of comedy, and his target couldn't be bigger. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the queen of social media soundbites and dramatic speeches that light up Twitter feeds like fireworks. But here's the twist that makes jaws drop. This time, AOC isn't holding the microphone of power. She's holding the L that Greg just handed her with a smirk sharp enough to slice through steel. What Greg uncovered isn't just another political squabble. It's a demolition disguised as a comedy routine, packed with truth bombs that sting harder than a headline scandal. AOC has long played the role of the Marvel superhero in Congress, cape optional, Instagram filter mandatory, but Gutfeld just turned that act into his opening punchline.
There is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this. The Republican caucus threatened my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of
Greg Gutfeld roasted AOC by pointing out how she may look fresh, but her ideas are as stale as a dusty futon sitting abandoned on a city sidewalk. Every time AOC launches into speeches about rooftop gardens, free college, or erasing student debt, Greg responds as if it's open mic night, and he's the headliner with the mic drop ready. When she frames herself as the fearless voice of progress, Greg flips it into a parody, asking how serious a revolutionary can be when she's sipping overpriced kombucha in a Tesla. Greg cuts through her claims about saving the planet and curing inequality like a hot knife through butter, exposing the fantasy for what it really is, a utopian shopping list written with someone else's credit card. Greg hammers her contradictions with ruthless timing, mocking her debt forgiveness plans as nothing more than handouts for upper-middle-class liberal elites. Every punchline drips with irony, like when he suggests she wants to save the world before brunch, but hasn't explained how any of it will be paid for.
Gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what if we get rid of cash bail? Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? You have rapists and killers, finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give...
Before we go deeper, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Greg drops the hammer by pointing out the hypocrisy. She's crying about student loan forgiveness while driving a Tesla, sipping organic kombucha, and walking a French bulldog that costs more than college tuition. Greg's punchline: sell the car, sell the dog, and then talk to me about debt. The audience roars. That's why his comedy stings so hard. It's not just humor, it's exposure. Every flashy speech gets reframed as a performance piece. Every grand slogan gets reduced to a punchline. Every act of moral outrage looks like an audition tape for Instagram. Greg makes her out to be less congresswoman and more influencer-in-chief, ruling over ring lights, TikTok clips, and comment sections rather than the House floor. He doesn't need data or reports. His jokes are sharper than any chart, and they cut deep. The funniest part? Even when AOC tries to clap back, she only makes the cycle worse. She tweets, Greg mocks it. She responds again, and he turns that into comedy fuel. It's political ping-pong, where every return gets more outrageous than the last. She wants to be the voice of the working class, but Greg paints her as Rosie the Riveter, dressed in overpriced merch, pushing slogans while living a lifestyle completely removed from the struggles she claims to represent. The contradictions are comedy gold.
I love how she explains it. They're not meant for you, right? But then you have to ask, okay, then what is this debt forgiveness? Who is it meant for? And when you look at the data, it's upper, white, middle-class, liberal women. This ain't welfare, right? These are well-to-do people. It's a bribe for Democrats on the backs of plumbers, truckers, and everyone else who actually does a real job, unlike me. AOC is the symbol of the entitled sponge. She complains about student loans, but she owns a Tesla.
Her branding screams anti-capitalist crusader, but her actions scream elite consumer. Greg loves exposing the irony of her selling $58 sweatshirts while railing against greed. He says it's capitalism with a smile, and the punchline writes itself. For conservatives, his roast lines turn into rally cries plastered across memes and bumper stickers, while progressives scramble to explain why AOC deserves applause for speeches that sound better on Instagram than in Congress. Meanwhile, the rest of America, they're sitting back with popcorn, laughing at a spectacle that feels less like governance and more like late-night comedy at the Capitol. Greg doesn't just laugh at her speeches. He exposes the double life of AOC, the self-declared warrior against capitalism who somehow finds herself living like a Silicon Valley influencer. Her Tesla and her French bulldog become symbols of irony, reminders that while she rails against privilege, she's living it in full display. Greg's comedy works because it's more than jokes. It's receipts delivered with a grin. He's not just mocking, he's showing the contradictions that even her fiercest defenders can't fully explain away.
Think about what their ideas incentivize. That would be nice. So where are their ideas going to come from? Trump. The only way they're going to create a message is based on whatever Trump does. So I have some slogans for the Democrat Party.
Oh, wow.
The Democrat Party, when you're tired of success.
Okay.
The Democrat Party, make America suck again. Democrat Party, the first choice for illegals, vandals, and dead people.
When AOC attacks billionaires, Greg points out how her own brand thrives on capitalism, from overpriced merch to glossy magazine covers. Her voice of the people image, he argues, is nothing more than another product for sale, wrapped in hashtags and sold back to her followers like an influencer's latest drop. And when she stirs up outrage on Twitter, Greg reminds the audience that it's all part of the cycle. Her drama fuels his jokes fuel her relevance. It's a never-ending loop of political ping-pong, where every fiery tweet she posts becomes another comedy weapon for him to swing. Even her most passionate policies, Greg says, sound like recycled college campus debates from decades past, just dressed in Instagram captions and dramatic video clips. He paints her student loan forgiveness crusade as a bribe to wealthy suburbanites with expensive degrees, while the working class she claims to represent gets stuck paying the tab. And with every punchline, Greg slices through the performance, making her proposals sound less like serious governance and more like a bad script from political theater. Her Green New Deal, he jokes, is the infinity gauntlet of fantasy politics. Snap her fingers, and the world magically transforms, but without a single explanation for who foots the bill.
First, she owns a French bulldog. Thanks to Cat Temp, I know everything about French bulldogs. And one thing I know,
I got a French
they are so expensive They're more expensive than any college tuition. You got to take care of them. They're adorable dogs. But she owns a Tesla and she owns a French Bulldog. And she wants you or your dad, the electrician, to forgive her student loan. That's BS. Turn in the Tesla, sell the dog. I'll buy it half price.
The brilliance is in his delivery. He doesn't need policy papers to destroy her arguments. He just turns her slogans into punchlines that hit harder than any fact check, like comparing her proposals to a toddler's drawing. Big ideas, bright colors, but no actual structure to hold it together. Greg's roasts hit viral gold because they say what many suspect, that AOC thrives on attention more than achievement. She may be in Congress, but her real stage is Instagram Live, complete with filters, lighting, and an endless performance that looks more like reality TV than legislation. Greg, of course, takes this and transforms it into comedy dynamite, arguing that Washington has turned into a political comedy club, and AOC is the headliner of absurdity. Every time she tweets or posts a video, it's like handing him fresh material for his late-night set, fueling an ongoing saga that never loses steam. Her supporters may call it unfair, but Greg frames it as honesty wrapped in laughter, a mirror reflecting back the contradictions no one wants to admit. And the truth bites hardest when it's wrapped in a joke, leaving her critics howling with laughter and her defenders fumbling for excuses. That's why Gutfeld versus AOC isn't just politics, it's must-see entertainment.
Meantime, AOC has taken a break from doing nothing to get into a beef with the Twitter chief. On Tuesday, she tweeted, LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. That's a reference to Musk's plan to charge people $8 a month for verified blue checkmark status. But he hit back tweeting, your feedback is appreciated. Now pay $8. To be fair, she'd love to spend the $8, but she already bought a Tesla. He also tweeted a photo of some ugly AOC merch she's trying to hawk for $58. Overpriced merch, AOC. Seems pretty capitalistic of you, which according to you makes you evil. And according to anyone paying attention, also makes you full of
A clash of branding versus reality that plays out like a sitcom with endless reruns. Every clash between them feels like a stage show where AOC plays the influencer politician, while Greg plays the sarcastic critic who refuses to let the performance go unchallenged. And the audience, they're eating it up, because in a world where politics often feels depressing, this bizarre duo manages to turn it into comedy that's sharper than any scripted sitcom. Greg's strategy works because he exposes the illusions. AOC's slogans sound powerful in a tweet, but when stripped down, they collapse under the weight of reality. He mocks the hero treatment she receives from glossy magazines, calling it a smokescreen to distract from the weakness of her proposals. Her supporters see her as an icon, but Greg strips that away, arguing she's more performance artist than policymaker. Less congresswoman, more Instagram influencer. That's why his takedowns stick. They're not just funny. They reveal truths people can't unsee once they're exposed. By the time Greg is done, AOC's bold speeches look less like the voice of a new generation and more like recycled slogans dressed up for social media. And yet, the saga continues because she thrives on the attention as much as he thrives on the material.
I mean, first of all, $80 per theater. I made $80 in a theater, and there wasn't even a movie playing.
Wow. What do you mean?
I don't know. It's no surprise. Who would go see a movie that's the opposite of entertaining? There's nothing entertaining about that. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because there's probably more twists. But it does show you how great it is to be a progressive in a liberal biased culture. She really doesn't do her job, right? She makes movies, she goes to galas, she sits for glossy butt-kissing interviews in GQ and other women's mags.
Together, they've created the strangest political partnership in America. She feeds him content, he feeds her relevance, and the rest of us get the popcorn. The result is scandal, comedy, and politics colliding in a way that proves one thing. This isn't just governance anymore, it's entertainment, and Greg Gutfeld is holding the mic while AOC struggles to hold the spotlight. The more AOC pushes her narrative, the more Greg sharpens his jokes into daggers. She brands herself as a warrior against inequality, but he flips it into a running gag about entitlement. Her speeches about fighting for the oppressed quickly get turned into comedy bits about someone who lectures plumbers and truck drivers while driving home in an expensive electric car. Greg points out how her biggest achievements don't live in congressional records, but in viral clips. The truth beneath the comedy is what makes it sting. Greg isn't just making jokes, he's pulling off the mask. He reveals how the slogans collapse when asked to stand on their own. He shows how speeches filled with emotion melt away when the receipts get checked. AOC thrives on attention, and Greg thrives on exposing her. Together, they form a bizarre, symbiotic relationship where she fuels his material and he fuels her relevance. It's political theater at its wildest, and the crowd is addicted.
It is funny. That's mean. You're
right,
mean.
she's
You're
not
being mean.
But I'm fascinated they
My
thought
case,
there was
it's
an
true.
audience for this outside of like Earth Justice or the Justice Democrats, because who really wanted to go and see this thing? And then tomorrow you'll have an article that we'll have to talk about, which is that kids all over America are having nightmares about climate change. Well, no wonder.
Well, Jessica, what about the fact that the climate activists are very much, they're very much enthused about what they do? And
AOC was on 60 Minutes last night. Quite a feat for a newcomer. Must be all her great new ideas.
People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes. Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%.
What an expression. Now, the real story isn't AOC's very old ideas. It's the media's gushy view of her. Even with her old ideas, she gets on 60 Minutes. The past is called the future, and you better love it.
Greg compares her climate crusades to a Marvel movie. In her mind, climate change is the villain, and the Green New Deal is the Infinity Gauntlet. With a snap of her fingers, carbon emissions disappear, planes run on good vibes, and every building in America gets renovated like it's part of a reality show. But Greg isn't fooled. He cuts through the fantasy with a punchline about how much it'll cost, who'll pay for it, and how quickly it would fall apart in practice. He makes the audience laugh because they recognize the exaggeration, but they also recognize the truth. The media's treatment of her becomes another recurring joke. Greg highlights how progressive outlets rush to protect her, painting every criticism as sexism, racism, or cruelty. He turns it into satire, saying the press acts like her personal PR team, shielding her from the very criticism that should test her ideas. Meanwhile, conservative outlets spread his punchlines like wildfire, plastering them across social media, turning them into memes and treating them like slogans. Greg's roasts aren't just comedy, they become rallying cries. The dynamic grows stranger by the day. AOC, supposedly the boldest voice of a new generation, becomes Greg's biggest source of comedy. And Greg, supposedly just a late-night jokester, becomes her harshest critic.
YouGov poll says AOC has 61% approval rating for Democrats, right? The highest of any Democrat unless they've been elected president. So if your new brand ambassador is going to be AOC, then I think it's more than just the messaging and the branding.
So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs. as she did surrender without fighting.
exposing her contradictions in ways that sting more than political attacks ever could. By now, the audience has seen the act too many times to miss the pattern. They know that behind the speeches are contradictions waiting to be exposed. They know that behind the Instagram lives are slogans that collapse when confronted with reality. Greg makes people laugh, but he also makes them question. And that's the real exposure. It's not cruelty, it's clarity, hidden inside a joke. When he mocks her, he isn't just pointing out flaws. He's showing how much of modern politics has become entertainment dressed as governance. He's reminding everyone that fiery speeches don't balance budgets, likes don't pass laws, and hashtags don't pay for utopias. In the end, the fallout is as predictable as it is entertaining. AOC doubles down, her supporters scream outrage, her critics share the clips, and Greg sits back, ready for the next round. It's political chaos turned into comedy gold.